and welcome to the SmackDown Preview Podcast. I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, joined by one of the Dadley boys, Michael Sidgwick from What Culture, and Phil Chambers from What Culture. Here's a preview tonight's episode of SmackDown on Fox. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts where we not only review Raw and SmackDown, but also the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT, pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on wrestle culture. As I said, though, joined by Michael Sidgwick and Phil Chambers to preview SmackDown on Fox. And of course, we are live right now on YouTube. So if you've got any questions for the guys, stick them in the comments. Any donations are more than welcome, and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can. Phil, you are the resident SmackDown expert, what with your reviews with Gareth Morgan on a Saturday. How are you feeling ahead of tonight's shows and the two Money in the Bank qualifiers?
I am excited to watch SmackDown on double speed again. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the qualifying matches have all been pretty good. It's easy TV. It makes sense. It's logical stuff to like get them to Money in the Bank. So yeah, it all works for me. This kind of stuff.
Now we've entitled this podcast, or this video, I should say, "Where's Sami Zayn?" And for eagle-eyed fans, there is a Sami Zayn on the Where's Wally picture that we've made. We'll stick it out there if you haven't been able to spot it just yet.
Where's
he is
Waldo?
On there. Oh yeah, cool.
Where's Waldo?
They call it Waldo over there, don't
Waldo,
they? God,
right.
they do everything wrong, don't they? Right, let's talk about this, though, because Sami Zayn has been sort of conspicuous by his absence on SmackDown on Fox, especially after retaining that Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania against Daniel Bryan. There was reports he was missing the shows because he was having his wisdom teeth out. That is the case. That was why he missed a show a while back. But he's a real loss on SmackDown, isn't he, Sidge?
Yeah, has he not just bailed?
Yes, basically, in summary, the reason why he isn't there is he is one of only two performers, the other one being Roman Reigns, who, of course, is immunocompromised, to have taken WWE up on that offer of, you know what, if you don't want to come in, if you don't want to risk your health and the health of your friends and family that you associate with, then you don't have to come in. No real surprise that there hasn't been more people taking that offer up, is there, Sidge? Because we sort of talked about this before, the implied, yeah, you don't have to come in, but...
Yeah, you've got absolutely no way of knowing in any kind of job if this scenario was placed in front of you. I mean, Jesus Christ, how are any members of that roster meant to take that seriously at all? You look at the modern history, not so much like the deep history, but particularly the modern history of WWE. And if you dare express any kind of contempt or disappointment, even mild, with the way things go for your character, your persona, your creative, your money, you will get mercilessly humiliated on screen for your troubles. The most recent prominent example of which was when the Revival last year requested their release. They were made to scooch around the ring, across the ring, like their arseholes were hot, like dogs with, as I've described it in the past, dogs with worm-infested anuses. So that is the plight you will have to go through if, in fact, you turn down their offer. And I would be absolutely shocked if, in fact, something like that or a verbal dig at Sami Zayn's expense does not happen tonight, because this is just the way they do things. They will punish you on screen if you express unhappiness with them.
Do you see them like taking the belt off him or anything like as drastic as that? If it's going to be like a long time, obviously, that he's going to be away for.
That's an interesting point to make, and the most recent precedent is, of course, Andrade, who was he pissed hot and violated the wellness policy, and his United States title was not removed from him. And in fact, well, is this stable a punishment that he has with Zelina Vega, Angel Garza, and Austin Theory? Because it feels more like a punishment than a stable, than a force, a threat, upwards taking his career trajectory. Maybe that explains it. I don't think I've seen that pointed out, but maybe that explains why this stable is so crap. It is a belated punishment for Andrade pissing hot.
It's a bit harsh to take 4 other people down with him, though.
I know. Wouldn't put it past them. Would not put it past them.
Yeah, me and Andy were talking about this on the news this morning, and basically saying, yeah, I mean, Sami obviously has astonishingly got into hot water before for his Sami for Syria project, which is a fantastic thing that is and should be promoted a lot more, especially by WWE. It comes up every time we talk about WWE in Saudi Arabia and what's going on there. Having said all that, and we anticipate that there may be some backlash from WWE because it's WWE, Sami is one of the few people on there who can almost turn around and go, "Go on, then. I dare you to release me," because he's so talented, isn't he, Sidge?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've said for such a long time that in virtually every single respect, Sami Zayn does not belong in that company. I understand why he signed in the first place. Back when he did, it was the only place in North America to make significant money, which I would never begrudge any pro wrestler, particularly looking at their career span. But if you look at his political outlook, if you look at his ring style, which was clearly like used to its maximum in NXT, but we've never really seen that on the main roster, not even once. And he's been there for some time at this point, like 4 years. So if you look at his political outlook, which contrasts sharply with WWE's Republican sort of conservative outlook, his ring style, and in fact, how keen Sami Zayn is, too keen, according to even his peers, of getting his creative vision and his ideas across on TV versus WWE's way of regulating creativity and just prohibiting it outright. I can't think of one person in that company who's less sort of belonging there than Sami Zayn. So, yeah, maybe this will be the catalyst for his departure. Who knows?
I'm almost surprised it's taken this long for him because he's normally really quick to stand up for things that he believes in or sees as like going against his morals or something like that. And it's been quite a long time that they've been on lockdown now without, with them all still going in. But do you see anyone else following suit, like Daniel Bryan or anything like that? Because he's another one that you'd expect would be on the same side as Sami on this.
Daniel Bryan's odd because, again, he seems to share a lot of personality traits with Sami Zayn. A lot of his ethical views and his sort of political views don't seem to align at all with just a lot of his Planet's Champion gimmick, which is so incongruous to WWE, was incredibly authentic and an extension of his real life personality. He has a second baby due, I believe. He is immunocompromised. I find it inexplicable that he's still going ahead. And the thing about Daniel Bryan, what's so odd is I know he absolutely adores professional wrestling. He absolutely adores it to the cost of his long-term health, it could be argued. But the thing that's inexplicable is that he seems to have such a carefree disposition where he doesn't really care about upsetting them. He came up with the yes gimmick on an do it first, ask for forgiveness approach later. He just wasn't scared. He didn't give a toss about doing it. He's just not a mark for it. He's not scared of reprisal. So I'm very, very much surprised that Daniel Bryan hasn't taken a similar route to Sami Zayn. And quite frankly, I really hope he does soon.
Yeah, exactly. Let's preview some of the matches we've got tonight on SmackDown. 2 Money in the Bank qualifiers, as I mentioned there. Otis versus Dolph Ziggler and Mandy Rose versus Carmella. Phil, this seems straightforward. It seems like the most obvious choice would be to have Otis and Mandy Rose put into the Money in the Bank ladder matches. A, because Vince can do all of his fat comedy with Otis, and B, because they'll want to do some sort of gimmick with Otis potentially helping Mandy Rose in her fight for the Money in the Bank contract on the women's side of things.
Yeah, you got to imagine so, but you are missing one incredibly important part of the story in the Mandy Rose match is that Carmella and Dana Brooke have a story going on where they're like, oh, should you really be having this match when we've got a tag team match? And Dana Brooke won hers, but is Carmella going to win hers? You just don't know.
What are the matches again? It's SmackDown. It just sort of washes over me.
Otis versus Dolph, Mandy Rose versus Carmella.
Well, Wilborn, did you do your research as a podcast host? Like I didn't as a podcast guest. What is the heel face alignment like on SmackDown? Who from SmackDown's already qualified?
Oh, you've just sprung this one on me.
Well, you're the host.
SmackDown side of things, Daniel Bryan and King Corbin. I think that's it, as far as I know.
Yeah, I
What
think
about
that's it.
Raw? So that's a face and a heel apiece. So what about Raw? Oh, it's still to be determined, isn't it?
Raw, we haven't got Apollo Crews anymore, but we have got Alistair Black
Yep.
and nope. It's not coming to me, whoever it is.
Either way, depending on how many faces and heels are on the match, you could probably just do process of elimination and decide who's likely to go on Raw. And basically, if there's a heel missing, and it has to be 3 heels and 3 baby faces in a 6, and 4 and 4 in an 8, the baby face or the heel, who knows?
It's Alistair Black.
Ultimately...
It's Alistair Black and Rey Mysterio from Raw.
Ray, of course it's Ray.
That leaves a heel death on the Money in the Bank men's ladder match. Therefore, it will bet your house it will be Dolph Ziggler progressing tonight.
Is Sonya Deville perhaps getting involved?
I would say so. No one wins. No, heels don't win clean.
The women's match at the minute is Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Asuka, Dana Brooke, and the Lacey Evans.
Right. Lacey Evans is a babyface now, isn't she?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
It's hard to tell. So, what's the match on SmackDown tonight?
Mandy Rose versus Carmella.
Isn't Carmella a babyface?
Yeah.
They've got their mouths wrong, so it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot.
Dana Brooke's going to turn on Carmella, costing her the match. Therefore,
and then a huge grudge match on the pre-show of Money in the Bank.
Well, because Dana's in the match, isn't she, as well? So I don't know. Just do some fun gimmick. I mentioned this in the news the other day. Someone, I can't remember. Apologies to whoever tweeted this to me, suggesting a sort of King Kong image of Otis at the top of the ladder. I pitched drones instead of planes, so you can have a recreation of that. I think if Vince gets one whiff of that, that's happening.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I just like the fact as well, everyone in the comments, I thank you for keeping us posted. People like Bradshaw 08, Luna the Hellhound, the Real Bogger, Balls, everyone.
Real Bugger?
Bogger.
All right.
Just spamming Rey Mysterio. We got there in the end. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, lads. Cheers.
You mentioned Daniel Bryan there, Sidge. He's facing King Corbin tonight. Thoughts on that one?
My thoughts on this is, oh my God. I'm actually looking forward to this because Daniel Bryan in this environment knows to kick really, really hard to kind of obscure the fact that there's no crowd volume. So he increases the volume. And I don't like Baron Corbin, the man, whatever his real name is, nor Baron Corbin, the performer. So I would like to see, and I'm very much enjoying the prospect, the anticipation ahead of Daniel Bryan kicking the crap out of his chest. And considering the man is 100% BS, then there will be some BS in his chest, in his head, in his knees. So kick him everywhere. Take the crap out of him absolutely everywhere. And on the subject of Baron Corbin, right, I know that he tweeted a review of that four-way tag match in January at Bash at the Beach when he was doing the whole Team America being sick gif. I would love for him to review, I would absolutely love for Baron Corbin to review Lance Archer's match on this week's Dynamite. I would love to see him review a big man match and how it's meant to be worked, so it not be boring as sin. That would be fantastic, Baron Corbin. So, Baron Corbin, if you're listening, I welcome your review of the Lance Archer versus Dustin Rhodes match. I would really love to hear it.
My favourite thing about this whole Baron Corbin thing is that last week they randomly put him with the artists of Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura.
I know. Artist. I've got my 5-year-old kid makes better pictures at school than he does at artistic professional wrestling matches. So yeah, that gimmick doesn't work for me.
One of the other matches we can look forward to tonight on SmackDown is the New Day versus one of the newest teams on Friday Night SmackDown, the Forgotten Sons. Now, Michael Sidgwick, I know you're a huge fan of Forgotten Sons, so I'll let you take this one. Phil, take this. Phil's, because the brief moments that I saw of Forgotten Sons in NXT, I despised. So what do you think of them?
Last week on SmackDown, someone backstage went, "Oh my god, we desperately need some tag teams," and all they could come up with was the Forgotten Sons and Lucha House Party. And this is where we're going from now. I'm fine. At least it's new faces. We're not just going to get the New Day versus the Usos yet again for the gazillionth time. But, I mean, it's the Forgotten Sons and Lucha House Party, isn't it? It's not exactly they're not going to set the world on fire.
It's a bit of a baptism of fire as well, I thought, for the Forgotten Sons, because they were sent in there to, there was a promo off, you had Lucha House Party in there, slightly different to all this, but you had the New Day and Miz and Morrison, great promos, and then they were just sent out there to cut this very serious, very macho promo. How did it hit for you?
Me?
Well, I was talking to Phil, but I think I can tell your answer. But what did you reckon, Phil?
You say, how did it hit? I don't know if it hit at all. It was just,
yeah.
It was another one of WWE's starting a show with a promo. Oh, look, someone interrupts. Oh, look, someone interrupts. Oh, look, someone interrupts. And now they're having a fight. It's just another one of those.
20 years of my life. And you know what? The 20 years started with the likes of Austin, and then McMahon and the Stooges would interrupt them. Great. You've got really funny characters. You've got an incredibly believable grudge element. This is incredibly entertaining. Austin also happens to be an absolutely fantastic pro wrestler, and he's locked in the feud with the greatest heel on screen of all time in Mr. McMahon. This is great. 20 years later of the same. I think there's going to be some diminishing returns here. We arrive. What was 1998? 22 years later at the Forgotten Sons on SmackDown in front of no fans. We're meant to care.
Phil, what did you make of the main event last week? A lot's been made of this. Obviously, Triple H out there, Shawn Michaels joining
just before we move on to that, let's not forget about the SmackDown hacker who's after tag teams as well. That might be coming in again.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
we can move on from that straight away.
Yeah, we've talked ad infinitum about this sodding hacker. It's Ali. It might be Ali and Gable, but it's Ali at the bare minimum. And I don't mind being proven correct with this. I don't mind. I think any WWE fan, if they're asked, would say, look, sometimes it's fine for us to work out what your weird system is. If you suddenly turn around and go, the hacker's Dana Brooke, everyone, it wouldn't work. So just stick with what you've got. It's fine. And we also are all ready, willing, and able to support this hacker and the gimmick and whatever that goes with it, even if it's randomly Chad chucked in there with Mustafa Ali. What did you think of the main event, Phil? Because you had the stuff with Road Dogg and Shawn and Steph was one thing, but Vince coming out was a whole different kettle of fish.
I loved it, absolutely loved it, because it was just ridiculous and insane and made no sense in the world. And just why would you bring up Katie Vick in the year 2020? Why would you talk about all these terrible things that you've done? I like that they changed it into a kind of roast of Triple H instead of just a yay, Triple H is so great kind of thing. But I mean, there's ways of doing this that's much better than this. They just there were so many holes in it, but I loved it as car crash TV.
Sid, do you think we're going to see, not saying more of Vince, but how many more Vince appearances do you anticipate in WWE's future? He doesn't like being on camera anymore, does he? He's openly said he feels he's too old.
Yeah, he certainly is as well. He certainly is. He's said this when I felt that he still had something to offer as a performer, I should add. He's been saying this for quite some number of years now. And yet I thought his interactions with Kevin Owens in the first Kevin Owens Shane McMahon feud were really effective. He might have gone wrong after that headbutt. That might have accelerated everything. I'm genuinely not. I mean, it's perversely entertaining, I guess, but I'm not joking. I'm genuinely not joking. So yeah, I don't really see more. But if you look at those ratings and the extent to which they're plummeting, Mr. McMahon, the character, and it might have changed after last week, genuinely, because I think people inexplicably felt pity for bastard capitalist who's in the running for worst prick of the year 2020. And yet, because he looked so frail and so unlike the legend, the in our faces we've seen evidence of the legendary sort of ball swinging cock out Vince McMahon, just looked like a shadow of that person for the first time. That looked really quite grim. However, he is a proven ratings draw, up there with a Steve Austin, up there with a Rock. He can, and he's obviously there every single week, most weeks, or he could be. He can make himself available, so he could do the odd promo to sort of remonstrate with a babyface who's getting a little bit too big for his britches. Who knows? But I would never rule it out because he is a draw.
Imagine being a casual viewer last week and tuning in. It's the end of SmackDown, and basically in that segment they call the product utterly crap. They make it really supremely awkward to watch, and then they end the show with just turning all the lights off and the noise of crickets. And where's your hook to tune in next week? Where's your thing saying this is a great product? Join us in next week. It's just, I don't know what they're expecting to come out of this other than more low ratings.
Yeah, it was just surreal, that finish, because they teased like, oh, is Shawn Michaels going to super kick Triple H, and then obviously they just didn't do that. And then that it's a show finished, and I remember watching that, and a little bit to myself, I just went, "Are you ready for a good time?" Just what the hell are we watching? Right, don't forget you can stick some questions in the comments section. I'll ask them to the guys whilst we've got time. Spaz Phoenix, thank you for your donation. Interesting proposition, this. I'll put this to you, Michael Sidgwick. A 2-night NXT versus AEW pay-per-view. Night 1 in MSG, night 2 at Daly's Place. Would it work? Would fans want it? It says, happy Friday, all three of you. Big old hug for Sidge.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Phoenix. Is this a babyface turn? Genuinely quite incredible. Of course it would work. I would love to see it because, and the thing about this NXT versus AEW sort of feud is that genuinely there is a lot of passion on either side. I think that the NXT fans resent the fact that AEW has stolen its buzz. And if you go on Squared Circle and you look at how many thread discussions and comments are on the post AEW and the post NXT show discussions, AEW is dominating it there. AEW is dominating the tweets on social media. It's dominating the ratings. There's no buzz around NXT whatsoever. NXT fans resent this because in their minds, and to be honest, it is not so much this year, but the early part of the war, it was quite substantiated that was at least an equal product. AEW fans resent NXT's kind of the unfortunate byproduct victim of a larger war against WWE, because AEW fans seem to resent NXT because they've counter-programmed AEW. They've inhibited their ability to grow larger than they could have. So I think on either side, there's genuinely a bit of tribal quality to the following. And if you put that in an arena, it would be absolutely phenomenal. I should have mentioned at the start of this, there's absolutely no chance it's ever going to happen. ever. But in terms of a theoretical alternate universe, yes, it could be some of the most incredible wrestling experience ever, because not only have you got the state-of-the-art craft, we've also got that sort of genuinely old-school tribal reactions between each sort of camp. So I think you've honestly got the best of both worlds in more than one way.
Imagine sitting the NXT people on one side of the arena, the AEW fans on the other side of the arena, and just the dueling chants between them. It'd be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think it could be amazing. And like you say, it's never going to happen. But anyway, Mega Toby 09. I'll put this one to you, Phil, considering you review it for us every week. Do you guys still get enjoyment out of SmackDown? AEW and NXT are far better in quality.
Yeah,
because I watch them and I kind of separate them out. I separate Raw and SmackDown from AEW and NXT as kind of two different almost genres of program. Is that something similar you go through, Phil?
Yeah, pretty much. There's definitely better wrestling shows out there from pretty much every wrestling show out there. It's down there with the worst. But there's still some shining lights in there. There's still the Mandy Rose stuff's been really entertaining. I think you get sort of a cheeky, like, giggle out of it rather than, like, pure enjoyment of a wrestling product, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not good, but you can kind of revel in its badness sometimes, and you do get the things like the Mandy Rose stuff that's been genuinely entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Edward Shirazhands, I assume he doesn't actually want a response to this question, but it's thanks to you for your donation, Ed. I'm going to mention it anyway. Edward says, "Hi, gents. Hope you're well. Do you think Vince McMahon will come out in a cheerleader outfit this week to celebrate Katie Vick?" So there's a mental image for everyone. Thanks for that, Edward. Eric Vasquez, regular contributors, lovely to hear from you as always. Eric says, "What, if anything, will be the high point of Money in the Bank 2020?" Phil, why don't you start us off, and then we'll come to Sidge for your thoughts on this.
Yeah, top of the building where the things are.
Git.
No, genuinely, the Money in the Bank matches, there's no way, even if they're bad, just the sheer setup of them, of having to go through Titan Towers, is absolutely incredible. I think it's genuinely one of the most creative ideas they've had in a very long time. And it's going to be brilliant. We're going to get a tour through Titan Towers. It's going to be silly. There's going to be nonsense. What's not to love?
Yeah, I would second that to a degree. I think it's an error to be doing two of them in this way, because the first one is, I mean, there's so much you can do in this environment. It's a building, it's an office building with like just loads and loads of rooms and lots of different spaces. And as Hamflet, I think, pointed out, they could sort of just borrow some stuff from the warehouse, a lot of the old props, pretend it's there, been there all along. But I just think with such a novelty of a match, to do two on the same night could be a problem. You're really inviting yourself to a diminished return. So I would second what Phil's saying, but specify it to the first Money in the Bank match. Don't go in expecting anyone to get over. Don't expect going in for it to be completely incredible banter, because they can't steer it. I think it's going to be, unfortunately, a bit too self-important when they've got such a huge opportunity to just go full utter banter. But surely it's going to be perversely entertaining at least.
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know how they're going to start the match, because it's kind of like it's a race basically from the bottom to the top, isn't it? So are they going to, like, I really want them to just do like a battle royale on the night before to determine the order that people start, and it's like, Dana Brooke, you will go on my first whistle, and then like just watch them all set off and try and get there as fast as possible.
I agree with that, but I also would like to try and see them all try and fit through that revolving door at the same time. I think it's going to be one of those ones where it's in real danger, even more so than usual pay-per-views, because we've known about this stipulation for so long that we always moan about, and it's ironic that we talk about it, but we moan about fantasy booking and how that sometimes ruins big matches for you, because it doesn't go the way you thought it was going to doesn't mean it's necessarily the wrong thing. But yeah, people have fantasy booked, we ourselves have fantasy booked some amazing spots in this, and if it's just a straightforward bit of a brawl through Titan Tower, it's going to be really, really disappointing. But I'm hoping that they will maybe not take some of our suggestions on board, but have had thoughts or suggestions similar to what we came up with. There is some real fun to be had here. And for me, if it's not the stupid bollocks that they go through to get to it, the high point for me would be the Asuka or Shayna Baszler grabbing that briefcase, because one of those two have to on the women's side of things claim that. And it'll be very interesting to see who replaces Apollo Crews. We'll debate that a little bit more on Monday ahead of Monday Night Raw, because there's that last chance gauntlet thing, and we'll discuss who should perhaps be the final spot following Otis versus Dolph Ziggler tonight, of course, in that men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Interesting question. Where's it gone? I've lost it. Forgot who asked it. There we go. From the real McCoy. Now that Axel is gone, of course, Curtis Axel released it earlier on today. Do you think they will team Bo Dallas alongside Bray Wyatt? Phil, it's something they've been pitching for a long time.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if they'll find a actually good creative way to do it, other than they're related, so here you go. Like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm not sure how high they are on Bo Dallas to begin with. Like, they've not done anything for a long time, so why would they put him into what is essentially a main event level position by teaming him up with Bray Wyatt?
Yeah, it's an odd one for me, this, because I understand that there's an obvious connection between the two, but they don't acknowledge that Bray Wyatt is Wyndham Rotunda. You know, they don't acknowledge that they're siblings, and it would kind of be nonsensical for them to do so. I would file this alongside Sister Abigail as something that there's a connection to be made and there's an opportunity there, but I just don't think it's in their outlook. The thing with Sister Abigail is that a lot of WWE fans for ages wanted a big-breasted diva who have her hair dyed black and for her to just play a fit goth to be Bray Wyatt's valet. And if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense at all. And neither really does this Bo Dallas thing. As much as, I think it would benefit Bo Dallas's career, they are related. I just can't see it personally.
Katie Mack says, "Can Phil's dog make a cameo?"
I will find him and let you know.
I can't answer that.
No. Interesting question here from Mark Andre Briere, who says, with Lance Storm as a free agent and Jericho being a Spears fanboy on AEW, could we get a Team Canada on the product dubbed Chris Jericho's Canadian Inner Circle, Michael Sidgwick?
That's an absolutely fantastic idea, but it's one of those ideas that it's like the B Sharps. If you're a fan of classic Simpsons, and if you're not, then I don't know. I don't know what to say. If you're not a fan of classic Simpsons, but that's one of those gimmick ideas. That's a bit like the B Sharps, where the first thought that pops into your head is, "Oh, that's really amusing," and then it just gets less funny afterwards. Then you realize it's absolutely not viable whatsoever. But you've popped me. You've popped me.
Strikes me as akin to the time I, at a sort of local festival, got to see Pizza Underground, which is Macaulay Culkin's band that does covers with the word pizza in it. So they sang "It's Such a Pizza Day," and they got bottled.
He's a What
final
Culture
question.
Macaulay Culkin's a What Culture fan. Fun little fact for you there.
He did. Maybe not a good idea after the first person through the first bottle for the lead singer, whoever she was, to say "missed." Bad idea, that. Bad idea. A load of pissed up people in Nottingham took that as an open invitation. Right, final question today. We're going to leave to the real Bogger, who says, "Who do you think?"
Real Bugger.
Bogger. Who do you think who do you think Bray will defend the title against at SummerSlam? That is, of course, assuming he defeats Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship. So, who do you think could be set up for him? And please don't say Randy Orton, Phil, please.
Oh God, I've no idea. Like me, Jeff Hardy maybe, if he wins this thing with Sheamus, and then they do something between them two. I know it'd be a bit weird with the Hardy connection and like they're just using Jeff because they don't have Matt, but.
The thing with Jeff Hardy is a potential candidate. They are building him for something, so that's probably the best guess. The best estimate, in fact, is that for better or worse, he's got a history that Bray Wyatt has got a psychological habit of deconstructing and humiliating in order to win a pro wrestling match. So I think there is potentially tasteless promo material that they can sort of get.
They haven't been shying away from Hardy's past with these like little vignette things they've been putting on as well. They've like delved quite deeply into his like drug past and things like that.
Absolutely. So I think it's something that Wyatt could use, not as the source of inspiration as these vignettes have been going, but as a stick with which to beat him. Yeah, I can totally see them doing this, and now that we've discussed it, I can't see them doing anything else. There's no other baby faces, is there? Roman Reigns can't do anything, and won't do anything, and thank God for that. Daniel Bryan shouldn't be doing anything, but if he does do something, he's already done something with The Fiend. Who else realistically on that SmackDown brand, bar a draft, is a top enough star if SummerSlam's even considered a big show anymore?
Otis.
You know what I mean? It's Otis. Yes. Otis.
I'm going to read off a final couple of questions here because they've been good enough to give us donations. Thank you so much for this. Matt Rains says, "Hey guys, at least the better Michael is with us today." Dream match: Le Sex Gods versus Flip Gordon and Joey Ryan, aka Le Dick Flips. Thank you for that. Matt Reigns. Sid, your thoughts quickly?
I don't like Joey Ryan, but I do like you, Matt Reigns, and thank you very much for your donation.
I'm up for that. I like Joey Ryan. Final question today comes from Spas Phoenix. Thank you once again for your donation, Mr. Phoenix. Interesting that I'll let you take this one initially, Phil, and then we'll transfer over to Sidge for his thoughts. Are AEW and NXT both open to criticism in the way one show has given an accused Baden a title shot? Ken, of course, that is just allegations as things stand. And the other has doubled down, ignoring social distancing by fabricating a crowd out of extra stars.
Can I go first? Please. Can I go first? Please, can I go first? Right. Optics-wise, AEW's transgression on social distancing looks worse because there are people in the crowd. If you don't think a collar and elbow tie-up isn't social distancing, then I don't know what to tell you. There's been multiple uncoverings on Instagram of WWE backstage and on-screen personnel just taking backstage photos right next to each other, arms around the shoulders, as if nothing's happening and as if they're not going to get caught, doing public posts. AEW's looks worse, but if you don't think what NXT is doing is social distancing, like a transgression of it, then I don't know what to tell you. It just looks worse. You're being worked by it. It is worse fractionally, but it looks worse. NXT and WWE are not adhering to social distancing because there are wrestlers hitting each other. I don't know how much work. I don't know what else to put it. As it pertains to the Velveteen Dream, no one knows anything. It would be horrific if they were to just remove him from the shows, because everyone would instantly think, all right, he's a nonce. He's obviously a nonce. They've taken him off it. The only, I think, and it's not a great look for them to continue to be on the show, but they are essentially making him look guilty when there's a chance he isn't if they proceed.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no social distancing in wrestling. It's impossible. You guys can't do it, apart from that one Joey Janela match, which was probably the only thing that's come close. But yeah, there should be no wrestling, and there should be no company that gets around having criticisms thrown at them for this, because there just isn't social distancing in wrestling. It can't be done. It can't be done. They are not essential workers at all in any stretch of the imagination. It just can't be done. And yeah, again, seconding what Sidgwick says about Velveteen Dream, it's innocent until proven guilty. If they do say something now, that automatically says in all of the fans' eyes that he's guilty. And if it comes out that he is, 100%, yeah, they should take him off straight instantly.
Oh, yeah.
But until then, yeah, there's not much else they can actually do.
Right, we'll leave it at that. Do let us know your thoughts on SmackDown in the comments section below, and tell us if you've managed to spot Sami Zayn in the thumbnail. Of course, if you want to let us know any other thoughts or any Twitter question or anything like that, at WhatCultureWWE on Twitter. If you want to follow all three of us, you can follow us there. You can follow Phil Chambers at
Phil My Chambers.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
Sidgwick, with a link to my latest article in which I've cracked the best analogy to how crap WWE is. So read that.
You can follow me and Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. Make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, Phil Chambers, Gareth Morgan reviewing SmackDown tomorrow. And make sure you join us live 4 p.m. on Monday, BST. We'll be previewing Monday Night Raw and answering any questions you've got, and also discussing all the breaking news. But this has been the SmackDown preview. My thanks to Phil Chambers and to Michael Sidgwick. Thank you for joining us, for all your questions, for all your donations, and we will see you soon.
All right. See ya, Sidge.